Hey guys, hope everybody's well. I have my DNA results. I wanted to share those with you along with one other just tip from me. If you don't know why I'm sharing my DNA results, then go back and watch last week's video that I shared, and then you'll know all about why I'm sharing it. But drum roll, here they are. Here's the results right here. All the genetic markers matched, which means he's my daddy, even though he doesn't want to be. But that's okay because I'm quite used to it after all these years. It's not that big a deal, but I am sharing this with you guys because maybe you have the same struggle. But to celebrate my results, even though he doesn't really want to celebrate, I went out and got some balloons. And one of them says, "It's a boy." Oh, actually, it says it's a baby boy. I'm not exactly a baby. Well, I don't know, maybe I am a little bit, but I am a boy and I love being alive, and I'm going to celebrate it. And sometimes I guess even though some people may not want to celebrate your life, you just got to go out and get your own balloons and celebrate your life. But I'm thankful because I'm surrounded by a bunch of friends, an amazing church, and an amazing family that celebrates my life every day, and I'm so thankful for that. But you know, the other thing though is the fact that I've through the years have struggled with unforgiveness, and I just wanted to share a little bit about that with you guys because I think I'm not alone. We've all probably currently are struggling with unforgiveness, and don't misunderstand me. I don't struggle with the unforgiveness in this situation anymore, but there was a time when it really overtook me to the point that I was I hated everything. I was becoming extremely bitter. It was very difficult for me to function on a daily basis because it was just controlling me. And so, when it really climaxed for me was after Amanda and I began to start having children. And I realized how easy it was to love my kids because I was kind of concerned about that before we ever started having children. And then we started having children, and I'm like, you know, I didn't have to have a book that said 10 steps to love your children. I didn't have to have that. I didn't have to have a coach that said, "Come on, Brian, you could totally love your kids." I just did it. It was the most natural thing that I'd ever done in my life. But the problem was in my mind. I began thinking about the fact that for somebody to not love their kids, it would be so unnatural that they would have to have chosen to not love their kids. And I'm like, what? Who would do such a thing? It's crazy. And so I began to hate my father because of that choice, because of the fact that I felt like that he had made these choices in his life. So I began to hate him, and I began to have all this unforgiveness in my heart. Whew. And then one day I was sitting in church, and then somebody spoke up and they said this, and I wrote it down, and I've kept it with it through the years. And they said, and I'm going to do the best I can to quote them, but it was like this: because of God forgiving us, we are empowered to choose to forgive others. But they went on because that made me mad because I didn't want to do it. I knew I had that problem, and I was aggravated because, you know, when somebody speaks the truth, a lot of times when we know that's the truth, sometimes we get aggravated because it's the truth. But they went on to say this. They went on to say that forgiving someone will be one of the most difficult things that you ever do in your life. I'm like, there's no doubt about that. But they went on and they said, but it's also the most courageous, liberating, and healing choice that you'll ever make. I said, man, I gotta do it. I gotta do this. So I didn't know how to do that. I read the Bible. I asked people. I didn't know, so I began to just pray. I said, God, you know, here I am. You know my heart. God, I know that the perfect Christian would say that they don't hate anybody, but God, you know my heart. I hate him. And it's getting more and more. I'm bitter. I'm hateful. I mean, it's affecting my skills as a dad and as a husband and as a business owner and everything else. It was just really affecting me. And so as I began to pray, I was like, man, whatever I've got to do, you know, God, I'm pouring myself out to you. And then over the course of time, it became better. But I still didn't know if I had actually reached that point of forgiveness, because it's not like that there's this neon sign that comes out and says, "You've reached the land of forgiveness, congratulations." I didn't know, I mean, because that doesn't necessarily happen. But then God led me to do something one day, and it had nothing to do with my dad. It didn't have anything to do with much of anything. I just know God, during my prayer time, I felt like God said, "You need to fast." Well, I had never fasted before because the fact of going without food was not exactly on my list of things to do, if you know what I mean. But I said, well, you know what? God said to do it. I feel like that confidently. I'm going to do it. I went to Minna and said, I'm going to fast. She said, why? I said, I don't know. She said, how long? I said, I don't know. I'm just going to fast. And so I fasted. So 10 days into this fast, I'm standing in our kitchen. And honestly, I'm starving to death. I'm struggling with it, to be honest with you. But I knew that I'm supposed to do this. And there was a knock on the door. And I look over, and it's my father standing at the door, who had not even spoke to us in almost 10 years from that day. And I was like, what in the world? What? Who invited him, or what in the world? And all of a sudden, it came flooding through my mind, and my heart, my soul, was God saying, this is why I had you fasting. Well, my mind immediately went to the fact that, oh, God's going to restore a relationship. We're going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. We're going to tiptoe to the tulips, and we're going to do all these amazing things. He's going to take me fishing. He's going to just, we're going to have this amazing life together after all. And so I spent the next few days with him, and then I realized that he was just as messed up as he'd always been. I'm like, what in the world? Why, God? You see, this is so crazy. But then I realized something after those few days. That I didn't feel hate toward him when I was with him. I actually kind of felt a lot of compassion for him. And I got to thinking that I don't think you can show compassion towards something that you hate. And I realized that my 10-day fast had ended with my neon sign knocking on the door. And I didn't even know it, that I had reached that place of forgiveness. And so my prayer for you today is that you will also reach that place of forgiveness, because it's not okay for you to hang on to that. And it's not okay for you to be angry, because the people that are in your life that love you deserve the best you. And as long as you're hanging on to the unforgiveness, you're never going to be able to give them the best you. So I pray that you'll let that go. It's not a matter of justifying what they've done wrong, because the only reason that you, like me, are hanging on to unforgiveness is because you feel like you have to be justified for what they've done wrong to you. But you need to let them go, because the problem is, whatever it is that they did wrong, as long as you don't forgive them, it's like you let them do that over and over and over and over every day. So I pray that you'll begin today and let it go, and begin to ask God, God, help me forgive them. Help me get to that place. And I assure you that God will. If you purpose in your heart to go that way with Him, He will take you there. So here's the freedom. Because what you're doing today and what you're doing every day as you choose to forgive is you're setting yourself free.